All right, so this week we're finally tackling the transmission leak. In the previous videos, we think we diagnosed it to where the speedometer cable plugs into the back of the transmission. But before we just start ordering parts, we need to take everything apart because more than likely there's a plastic gear in there for your speedo that kind of plugs into the back of your transmission. And that itself tends to wear out and it puts this little groove in it. And then the transmission fluid tends to go around that. So we need to rip everything apart, see how many tooth gear we actually have so that we're ordering the proper gear to keep our speedometer in check. And hopefully whoever put that in there accounted for these wheels and all that. So we need to get everything apart before we order parts, basically. So let's get into it. All right, so here's where the speedometer cable comes in. There's one clamp up here. It indexes on this in only one spot. So it can only go back one way. I'm going to first try to get the cable out. I don't think it's going to happen with just my fingers there. I'm going to see if I can't grab onto it. Hopefully I don't like scratch it up or anything. There it goes. All right, that's off. This should just pull out. There it is. So this is the inside of here. It's the little plastic gear. And unfortunately, you can't just start to replace anything here because you need to know what size gear that is. All right, here's the clip. I'm gonna clean all this up before I put it all back in there. All right, so here's the tricky part. If your transmission still has a lot of fluid in it, this right here could spew everywhere. Kind of feels like they put a little RTV on here, so they knew it was leaking. So if you just try to grab onto this part right here, you're gonna mess up those threads. I'm gonna see if I can't just, nope, that's not wiggling free. There's no real good spots to grab onto it. I might try putting in the cable and kind of using the cable itself to tug on it. Yeah, I feel like they saw that this was leaking, but didn't realize you need to replace the plastic gear in here, and they just RTV'd the heck out of it. So this is not going to be the most ideal situation of how to get that out. So that's going to be fun. I'm wondering if I put this nut back on and then pull from the cable itself, would that give me enough leverage to pull it out? All right, I think it's on a couple of threads at least, so I'm gonna kind of back up and try to tug on this to see if I can't get it to come out. Well, that didn't work out well. All right, guess I'm gonna have to come up with another plan here. All right, so this may just break it off, but I'm gonna try to see if I can't get it to move. There, it's starting to shift around a little bit. I'm hoping that this will break the RTV that is in here. All right, so then maybe we'll go the other way now. It's a good sign that it's moving. So I'm not actually twisting this to get it out. I'm twisting it to break free because this should just be an O-ring. Oh, here we go. So I just put the nut back on after cleaning it, and now I'm kind of just very easily prying, and I saw it move. Oh, there it is. So if your transmission is full, expect this to kind of hose you down. So I'm just carefully trying to, oh, there, work it free while staying far back. Oh, there it is. And it is oozing oil out. A lot of oil. Definitely have a drain pan. But here's that gear. I'll show you what to look for, and we'll clean this up. And yeah, that's nice. Oh yeah, look at all that transmission fluid. But all right, now that we got this out, I will clean this up, and then we'll see if this was the problem. I have a feeling that this is probably the problem. Okay, so got everything off. So here is the outer clip, and I'll show you this first. So if you could see these two little reliefs, this plugs right into there, stops that from spinning. And maybe don't recommend tugging on the cable, because now I got to figure out this part or get another cable. So what I ended up doing was I kind of wedged a screwdriver underneath here, trying not to damage the threads, and just kind of very easily trying not to go crazy with it. But you could see right here what was going on. They RTV'd this in there because they were having a leak. And from what I could feel right here, the O-ring actually feels almost below flush. So they were probably getting a leak here, and now this caused the leak. So the other thing I wanted to show you on these plastic gears, let me clean it off, and it might be hard to see, but right here is where the O-ring rides. And if this isn't completely straight and smooth, see how there's a divot right there? This has to be replaced. You're just gonna be chasing your tail. So if you look on these, kind of just wipe them off. I definitely think it helps to count, but if you look on these, you usually will see a number. So right there, this one says 35 teeth, so 35 teeth. I'll double check this and count this. Also on the housing right here, supposedly right here it says 36, 37, 38, 39. Supposedly that's what this housing is good for, but you can obviously see somebody jammed something else in here. So the reason that you're going to change this gear is if you change the size of your tires or your rear end ratio. If you change that and you still want your speedometer to be accurate, that's the reason that you would change this out to match that. So there's a bit of math involved there. So I just got to clean out all this RTV. So the other thing I would probably do is really clean this off, so then you don't have to do it with a big open wound inside of your transmission. But now, when you're at this part, now you can order the correct parts. So you can order a new gear, and you can get, so it's basically this O-ring right here, and then right in here there's a metal clip with another O-ring that you need to get. So it'll come as like a 3-piece kit. So I'm going to put that on order now that I know what size this is. All right, so it's a few days later. We finally got in the right parts. So here's the old one, here's the new one. And you're probably not gonna be able to tell right here, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set up a picture right here that should be on screen now, and I'll point to the old one versus the new one, and you'll see that the new one is very slick and doesn't have a divot to where the old one actually has a divot. So you need to count your teeth, order the right one, and then this kit should be pretty universal. So it's a big O-ring, which will be the O-ring that goes around the outer part of this, and then there's a small O-ring that goes right in there, and then there's the clip. So you just need to pry out the clip. Comes with a new clip because more than likely that's going to go off into orbit. So you're just going to replace that. I would also clean this as much as you can. So I got a pick here, so I'll probably dig into these threads, try to get everything cleaned out as much as possible. And then, if you remember, I pulled off this outer plug, which goes in here, that goes into the speedo cable. So I got some Permatex Ultra Black, oil resistant, should do all the things. So I'm going to try to wedge it back into here, and if it fits, then I'll pull this back out and I'll put it back in with the Permatex, kind of gluing it around. But make sure you put on this thing and don't just glue it on, because then it wouldn't hold anything. So just going to start into that now. Going to pry out this clip and hopefully don't lose it. So you're just going to need a pick, or yeah, it kind of feels like a pick is going to be the best thing. So we're just kind of just working it around. Sometimes the problem with a pick is you could scratch up the surface you're trying to pull from. So this is the clip right there. Looks like it just kind of wedges and holds it in. So the other reason you're going to want a pick is because you can grab a hold of this O-ring and just kind of pull it out. All right, so if you'll notice, the side that is solid was facing up, and then the side that has the groove in it was facing down. So just keep that in mind. So before I put on the new one, I'm going to clean this out a lot. All right, got everything all cleaned out. So remember the double, or the grooved side, you want that down. So I'm just going to kind of push it in there, wedge it around. Now I'm going to use the pick to just kind of work it down. It could very easily flip over on itself. I'm going to make sure it doesn't do that as I'm pushing it down. Yeah, it seems like it's there. It doesn't seem like it's actually sticking outside the inside diameter that much. I was kind of hoping that it would have a bit more. Also, the clip itself, in here, there's no relief for that clip to actually plug in. So that clip, the clip is pretty much just a press fit. So I just push it in by hand, and then you could probably use a screwdriver. So I'm gonna send in the new one on this side just to see how it feels. Yeah, it feels like there's a little resistance, but it doesn't feel super tight. That'd be cool to go through this whole thing and then it still leaks. That'd be pretty awesome, right? Yeah, so you can wedge that clip almost to the point where it's going around the gasket, which is obviously not what you want to be. You just want it to be holding the gasket in, but it doesn't feel like that gasket applies a lot of pressure to that plastic gear. I don't know if you guys can see what I'm talking about here, but so the inner diameter of this, it doesn't seem like it's really poking past that much. So as I'm pushing it through, it definitely feels resistance right there, but it's not a lot. It's obviously enough where this isn't going to come flying out, but it's definitely not a lot. Kind of realistically wanted a little bit more. So I don't know if I leave it in there and then kind of force the clip around. Would that make it puck out some more? But I guess the problem is even if it pucks out a little bit more, there's no like relief for that clip to actually go into. So it seems like it would just work itself out again. I mean, it's there. The other thing I could do is stick in the older one and see how that one feels. Yeah, see, the older one, it almost completely, you don't even feel any resistance right there. So it is doing something. I feel like they put a gasket right here hoping to stop the leak from coming up, because the new one didn't come with this gasket. The kit didn't come with this gasket, so I don't know where they actually got this from. So the new one is technically doing something. It does feel, it's just not a very aggressive one. So what we'll do now is we will take our pick, kind of stab this gasket, and then work that around and pull that off. And then I will clean out the groove of this. Yeah, I could see right there, there's RTV in there. So they put RTV everywhere. It's weird too, because if you're already in here, the new gasket kit is not that expensive. Okay, so I got everything assembled back together. I actually think that little gasket right there was actually acting as a spacer, which then would have put where it was riding further out, and this tapers down. So I don't know that was helping. The other thing too is I have a before and after picture right here. This rubber O-ring is actually sticking out past this, where before it actually wasn't. So what I'm going to do now is going to reinstall this, but keep in mind you have this clip right here that has to lock onto that according to the bolt pattern. So probably when you're pushing in, want to get really close to that, but I'll pick you up under the car. Okay, so here we are. Just remember these grooves. I'm going to try to locate them. I'm going to very easily push this in because I don't want anything to happen to anything. Okay, that feels about where it should be. So I'm going to kind of just push that in a little bit. Maybe tap it with the mallet. Seems like it went in actually fairly easily. All right, so I'm coming in. Yeah, it feels like it just bottomed out right there. Now don't go crazy on that part. So now I'm gonna screw it in with the bracket. All right, we're getting close, so As you can see, this is not quite lined up, so we need to index it slightly. So how we're going to index it is I'm just going to take a screwdriver and I'm going to very gently, because you can overshoot this, very gently just kind of go over a little bit. And then, is that there yet? Almost. We'll go over a little bit more. Oh yeah, that feels like that's pretty good. You can see right there, it's the same gap right there as it is right there. So now we're gonna go on to fixing the cable that I messed up right there. I got this all cleaned out. You definitely don't want anything in here, right? So it seems like there's no second like ridge where this was clipped on. So it seems like it was just kind of clipped onto the end. And when it's clipped onto the end, it sticks out about that much, which is where it seemed like it was sticking out before. Because if you put this like this, let me just take it off of that. If you put this like this, it's sticking out that much. So that seems about what it was when I took it off. So I'm not gonna put the Permatex in here. I'm gonna put it on the outside, so then that way when it's going in, it just smears around it. Because if I put it in here, it'll have a chance of actually getting into there. And I've cleaned everything right here as good as I can. So just doing this just in case there's maybe something where it wants to leak, and hopefully this schmeggly right here will stop it from leaking. So I'm gonna put that on like that, and then I have new gloves on, so I'm probably gonna work this around. I'm hoping also that this is gonna hold on to that part, maybe act as like maybe a little bit like a glue, hopefully. Just gonna work that around. Make sure that there's nothing on the spindle. I don't think anything would hurt it. So as you're putting this on, make sure the little nut part is on, because if you don't put that on, then you're gonna have to take and redo this whole thing. Ah, there it goes. It actually, you kind of feel it like click. So it's clicked on. And now what I could do is actually push that around that, clear it off. So this realistically doesn't take very much at all. And I'm just hoping that kind of just seals it and locks it in. Now we'll put this back on, and then I'll screw this back on right here. So we'll see how that goes. All right, so now I'm just gonna take this easy. I'm gonna move that back. I'm gonna get that rod into there. Now I'm gonna see about bottoming that out. Now I'm gonna start that nut. Keep in mind, you wanna make sure you're not cross-threading that nut. So I'm not gonna go crazy with this. I'm just gonna use this just to snug it up, because it was a little bit snug when I started. I just want to make sure that it is snug. Yeah, that feels pretty good. All right, so I'm gonna take a little bit more of this Permatex right here, and then I'm just gonna, with my finger, just kind of work this around, since this seems like it would be one of the weak points. I've already cleaned all this. Gonna make sure it's nice and packed in, hoping that this also gives it just a little bit of strength to hold itself together. Now this stuff's supposed to be good for oil, for whatever. So I'm hoping that this is good for this. I'm gonna let this set up all night, and then I will put transmission fluid in it tomorrow, and we'll see how it is. All right, so it's the next day. We're gonna fill it up with tranny fluid. I'm pretty sure it was already low, not to mention what leaked out. So I'm gonna put in a quart, and then we'll fire it up and see how low it is. And then we'll go back underneath to see if it's dripping anywhere, or if we have more than one leak. All right, we're gonna get it started. That's the only way to really check your tranny fluid, is to get it started and running. Need a battery. Take two. I have a battery now. There she is. All right, so it's running and idling. I'm gonna back it up and try to get it a little bit more level before we check the actual level, but underneath it is actually completely fine, not dripping currently, or it doesn't have enough to leak. Yeah, I think we gotta add a bit. So I just poured in about half of this. Now we'll double check it. Where'd the dipstick go? Oh yeah, look at that. Probably can't see it, but it is right about there. I think what would help is if we drive it around for a little bit, then come back and check it again. All right, so after a nice little drive around, you also need to do that to warm up the vehicle because fluid expands when it's warmer. So let's double check to see what our fluid level is at. So clean it off. Make sure you push it all the way back down in there. Just trying to get in the light here. Yeah, so it looks like it's right at the point where it says add, so we're just gonna add the rest. So it feels like it's a deeper pan, so if it's a deeper pan, it has like more to fill, and if they didn't put like a longer dipstick, we could be good. So as long as they put a deeper pan and then they put a longer pickup, let's hope they did that. So I'm just gonna dump off whatever the rest of fluid I have here. All right, she sounds good. She's all folded up. Fold up enough. So on the drive, she felt very responsive. You'll notice like when you start to get low on tranny fluid, it'll kind of act very sluggish and act like it's very labored. So I think what we're gonna do now is I'm gonna slide back underneath there and see if there's any other drips. All right, gonna take you underneath. So right there, there's nothing. So that's pretty exciting. Everything seems to be good and not dripping. It was definitely dripping before. All right, so that concludes this week. I think we got the transmission leak fixed, or at least the biggest leak fixed, and that's the way it goes sometimes, but it's holding right now, and I'll update you because you'll see another video of trying to fix the next leak if there's another one. So next week, what we're gonna do is we're going to fix that horrible starter. We're gonna dial it in. We're going to show you what it takes to actually dial it in and the shims that it would take. So we're gonna do that next week to get rid of that horrible like, whining sound, or at least try to get it fixed, unless it tore up the flywheel. So thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next saga of the next video of the truck.